Oh, good morning. I've got such a fucking mess in my studio today, but I want to make a coffee before we start. Probably shouldn't be consuming coffee while I'm working with epoxy, but I need a coffee. So it'll give some time for some people to get here anyway. I really want to say happy birthday to Ellie for yesterday. What's the bet? I don't have a teaspoon. I do have a teaspoon, but happy birthday to Ellie for yesterday. I hope you loved your flowers, and I hope you went easy on the champers. And I'm thinking of Anja today, or Annie, you can call her Annie, who is moving house today. I don't envy her having to pack up an entire studio. So the first of the removalist trucks arrived today, and she is off. Her husband got a promotion and she had 2 weeks notice to move, and she's leaving. So I would hate to have to pack up this studio, seriously. I'm just gonna wait until, if any of yous are in here, because I can't even see the chat, can you please give me some hearts, some thumbs, something, so that I can see. Choose how to go live. Oh, there's always all these new features that I have no idea what they are. Anyway, I'm just waiting for people to arrive. So if you're in here, give me a thumbs up or something so I know that you're here. Making a coffee because I really need one. Probably shouldn't be drinking coffee while I'm working with epoxy, but anyway. Now I can't see any comments or who's in here, so I can't even welcome you to the live. But let's get going anyway, and I will start this process of degassing. So hopefully you can see. Alright, so I've got some inclusions. So I've got cremation ashes that were donated to me by a cat that was hit on the side of the road who was not claimed. I have some donated placenta in a little baggie. I have some leftover placenta pills that, you know, these are ones that are just, when I'm at the end of placenta encapsulation, they don't quite fill an entire pill. And so I just ask the client if they mind if I keep them aside and use them for work. And if they agree, I make them a little bead as a thank you. And I also have some resting soil as well. So as you can see, these all of these inclusions are pretty much how anybody would receive inclusions into the studio. They haven't been treated, they're raw, you know, well, in the rawest form for crafting, of course. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take out some cremation ashes out of here and just put some into a little cup. Oh my God, it's wrapped up so good. Okay. So I'll probably use this much. These ones are quite pale, but anyway, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to mix up some epoxy. I'm going to do it from, the reason why I didn't pre-mix it is because I don't want you girls thinking that I've tampered with the demonstration. So I'm just going to put on a glove or two. I'm not going to wear a mask, so you're just going to have to excuse my lack of PPE. But it's so hard to do it and video at the same time. But I'm at least going to put some gloves on because I know that my bottle of epoxy is covered in resin residue, and I have a really bad habit of wiping my eye. So I'm just going to measure out some epoxy. I'm only going to do a small amount. I'm going to do 15 mil. So this epoxy here is by measure, not by weight. And it's a 2-to-1 ratio. So, and my resin's cold. It's so thick. I've tried to warm up the studio this morning, but it's like 13 degrees or something in Ballarat today, so. Okay. So there's one bit. So part A. And your part B. And I still can't see comments. Can somebody just comment just to see whether I can see comments? Because I don't know whether it's because no one has commented or whether I just can't see them. And for some reason I can't see the comments on the other video too. I did see a preview of it, and one was, do you have to degas UV resin? But I can't find the comment to friggin' reply to it. The answer is no. You pretty much, even if you wanted to, you couldn't really degas UV resin because it doesn't stay in its liquid state for long enough to put it through a degasser. You could try in like a really dark room, but I really don't think there's any sense to it anyway. It's more like 2-part resins, and epoxy is already mixed, and it would already be degassed as well when it goes through the chemical process at the factory. So there is really no point degassing UV resin, and I think your chances of actually degassing it would be very low anyway. But anything that comes in 2-part, even like silicone, it is worth degassing it. Whether you do it or not is your business. But I just wanted to demonstrate to you girls the importance of degassing these type of inclusions. So I've mixed this up. Another thing with degassing is you don't have to freak out if it's not fully mixed. I can see Rhonda's joined. Hi Rhonda. Because when it goes through the degassing process, it kind of you know, almost sort of helps with the mixing process itself anyway. So I'm not going to give this a full mix. I'm just going to, you know, combine part A and B well enough. And I haven't worried too much about bubbles because, like I said, I'm going to degas this anyway. So we're going to put this in the degasser. I'm going to take my glove off because I'm going to touch my phone. And I'm going to sit the phone on the top of the lid so that you can see what's going on the inside. So excuse me a second while I get you out of here. So give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to pop you down here for a minute so that I can put this in here, because I can't do 2 things at once. All right. I just needed to get it into the degasser. All right, let me see if I can turn this around. Okay, so the resin is in the degasser. We're going to turn it on. We're going to close off our valve. And I'm going to pop you here so that you can watch the degassing process. Oh, hang on, I haven't got a tight enough seal. Why? There we go. Okay, now it's going. So it's going to be a little bit noisy for a minute. I'll see if I can zoom in a bit. There we go. This won't take very long. If anyone's got any questions, just pop them in the comments and I'll see if I can see them to answer them. While that's happening, I'm going to go and find a mould so that I can pour this into, so I don't have to dump it into the bin. Okay, so you can see it's getting quite foamy. These are all the micro bubbles that you wouldn't normally see in clear resin. In fact, in clear resin, under a microscope, your resin, if it hasn't been degassed, will actually represent honeycomb, but it's pretty naked to the eye just looking at it. Okay, you can see that it's starting to calm down a little bit, but it's still not there yet. We want to make sure that there's like no bubbles in here. So you can see it's starting to clean up a little bit. All those bubbles coming to the surface and just popping, which is what we want. It's really important to, if you're going to be doing this, don't do what I'm doing and be standing over your degasser, because the degasser will be extracting epoxy fumes, so you don't want to be breathing those in. So we're just going to speed this up a little bit by releasing the valve. And bringing it back up just to top those top ones Sometimes the last few bubbles at the very end of the process are the hardest to pop. So I'm just going to give my degasser a bit of a hand and push down on the lid to get a really tight seal. The valve is moving very slowly. And as you can see, I'll try and, how do I can't get used back to normal. As you can see, the valve is almost at its peak and there's no bubbles coming to the surface. So it's really only those surface bubbles there. I've got something flying around in my degasser. It's just like 1 or 2 or 3 bubbles around the edge of the pot that are having trouble popping. But for the most part, this is degassed. So I'm going to turn my pump off. So you can see how much we actually got out of there. I'm going to turn this camera back around. I'm going to set you back up here. Hang on a minute. I hate this tripod. Just a second. Okay, hopefully my phone doesn't fall out. All right, I'm going to pop you there for a second while I get it out. Okay, so those bubbles are popped now. So as you can see, it's totally degassed. There's no micro bubbles whatsoever in there. I'm so sorry if there's any comments, but I can't see them. So I'll have a look after the fact. All right, so we may as well start off with some placenta, do you think? We're going to go through all of them anyway, so we may as well. So I'm just going to put in some placenta into my cup. A normal amount that I would probably mix up if I was working on someone's piece. I'm going to slowly pour in the resin. I'm going to put in enough to actually show you the degassing process. So I'm mixing slowly. So I'm not whipping it because I don't want you to think again that I have tampered with this demonstration. So there we go. Okay, so we've got our, I've even gone ahead and popped the surface bubbles on it. Okay, so we got our placenta in our resin, and that's been degassed. So I'm just going to pop it back in the degasser, and we're going to go through this process again. Okay, let me get you out of here. All right, let me turn you around. Okay, so here we go. Okay, can you see the top of the resin starting to become white? That is all of the gases rising to the top. The gases are micro bubbles that are trapped within the mixture of the placenta and the already degassed resin. So you'll start to see it'll get very foamy. And as you can see, all of these micro bubbles would normally be trapped in the keepsake that you're making. So if you're making something, especially something dense, like a bead, this will act as a honeycomb effect inside the bead that won't be visible to the naked eye. So we're going to let this run its course because I want you to see how much is actually really truly trapped in there. I'll leave you with that for a second. Now, who here is surprised to learn how much gas is trapped in that already degassed resin? For those that have just joined, I will be posting this to the wall so that you can see it from the start to the finish. As you can see, the bigger bubbles are starting to come up now, which is meaning that it's coming to the end of the degassing process. But I'm still going to let it run its course. Now, when I degassed the clear epoxy, it did not take this long to extract all of the gas. So just by introducing the inclusion into the already degassed epoxy, look at how much more air, gases, and stuff that we have stirred up in that epoxy resin already. Okay, I would normally let this run to the end, to the point where it isn't bubbling anymore, but I think I've made my point. So I'm going to turn this off and I'm going to release my valve. I've got something flying around in my degasser. I cleaned it out the other day. I'm releasing the valve slowly because I don't want the force of the air to actually knock over the container. So I'm going to turn you around and I'm going to take these inclusions out of the degasser. Pop you back in there. So that is our degassed placenta that we just took out of the degasser. I've just grabbed a random mold because I'm just going to dump all of this stuff in here so it doesn't end up going in my bin. Okay, so let's move on to, what was that, placenta? So we may as well do the cremation ashes. Okay, so we've got cremation ashes in the bottom of our container. I'm going to pour some epoxy in. About the same amount as what I put in for the placenta. And again, I'm going to gently stir this in until it's all combined. And we're going to run through the process again. With cremation ashes. Okay, turn this around a bit so you can see me put it in the pot. Alright, so into the pot. I'm going to turn it on, put my valve on. I'm going to get these out of here. I'm going to turn this around. Get this somewhere where you can see it properly. You can't see it on camera yet, but there's already little bubbles rising to the top. Then you'll see a slight change in colour, which may be hard to see because it's grey. And that'll be all the foaming gases coming to the top of the mixture. And then it's going to start releasing all of those gases and bringing the bubbles up to the top of the resin and popping them. Again, getting rid of that honeycomb effect that would be microscopically captured inside the piece that you're crafting. These little bubbles that are popping up at the top of the surface, this is exactly what makes cremation ashes pieces crumble over time. I know because I have fixed many of them from other DNA artists, even the ones that are telling you that you do not need to degas it. So if I hadn't have actually degassed this resin before I put these inclusions in, and I just went ahead and degassed it in here as a one-off, this cup would be so foamy, it would be boiling over inside my degasser. It would be spewing out the top of the cup. So this is why I degas before I degas. I know it sounds stupid, but it is worth it. So look at all of those bubbles. It's incredible. You would not think that that would be trapped inside your beautiful jewellery that you are making that is meant to be a forever piece. And so I know that you guys are freaking out about the value of a degasser, but I can tell you that a degasser in your studio is probably the most important piece of equipment that you can buy for your business. I highly suggest that if you can afford one, that you do get one, and if you can't afford one, you start budgeting for one. I'm just going to crack a window open because it's quite gassy in here already. Okay. Just like the other one, I would normally let it run its course to the very end, but I think I've proved my point with that one too. So I'm just going to release the air. And take it out, and then we'll do the dirt. Pop you back in here. Okay. All right, so we've got it out. There's our cremation ash. Even though I didn't have this degas all the way through, look at how beautiful that is. You've got, I've got an itchy throat, a really nice, consistent, lovely epoxy pour right there with no bubbles trapped. I don't know whether you can see. Even though I would normally let it degas for a lot longer. And surprisingly, it will actually make your pieces set a lot quicker. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. All right, so now we have got, that's placenta, graveside dirt. So I'm just going to pour all of this in this last little bit here. Oops. Oh no, my phone is going flat. So I'll pour all of this in here and I'll mix it all in. And it does not matter whether you add the inclusion first or the inclusion last. The same amount of gas is still going to be trapped in. So I am going to give this a very gentle stir. Make sure it's mixed in well. And I'm going to pop that into the degasser. Turn it on. I'm going to spin you around. And same thing, I'm going to show you the graveside dirt. Oops. And again, for those just joining, this resin has already been degassed. So what you'll start to see is the top of the mixture with the inclusions in it will start to become white, which is the gases being lifted from the bottom of the mixture up to the top, which is what traps all of your bubbles, and it's going to bring it all up to the surface and pop them for you. And again, this process that is happening now is what would normally be trapped inside your keepsakes, and under a microscope it will actually look like a honeycomb effect, which causes a brittle keepsake. So I think you all get the point. There's no point letting it run all the way through because we've done it with the other one. So I'm just going to get it out. But generally when you're degassing, you would let this process run to the end where there's no more bubbles or foaminess coming from the inclusions, and it won't be until that happens that it'll be totally degassed. So even this piece that I'm pulling out now will actually have microscopic gas bubbles in there that you won't be able to see, even though just looking at it now, it looks really solid and mixed very well and free of air bubbles, but in reality it actually isn't. So I'm just going to pour that into the mold to get rid of that. Let that set somewhere so it doesn't end up in my bin. Okay, so hopefully that makes a bit of sense to you all. If you've got any questions, let me know. Yeah, like I said, a degasser is actually worth it. Over the 8 years that I've been doing this, I've fixed more pieces than I care to think about when it comes to brittle pieces of keepsakes. I don't care what anyone tells you. The proof is in the pudding. So whether you guys decide to go ahead and get a degasser just for these dry inclusions is totally up to you. It's an individual choice, of course, but I truly feel as though the degasser is probably one of the most important pieces of equipment, apart from my autoclave, that I actually have in the studio. So even if you can't afford one now, you don't have to spend a fortune on them. Ellie just got one a couple of weeks ago from eBay. eBay is where I got mine from. You can buy smaller ones, you can buy bigger ones. So yeah, I truly believe that it is worth it. And you know, how good is it to be able to actually bring this to your client's attention when you're selling them a keepsake, because not only does it prove that you know your shit, but it also proves that you actually care about the integrity of their inclusion, and that if you're going to be crafting their keepsake, you're going to be doing it right from the get-go. So I think it's really important. So I don't care what blogs are written about us, you know, what, ask them to do this process for you. Say to them, okay, so if that is not the case, do you mind mixing up some epoxy and degassing it, and then adding your inclusions and degassing it again, and video the process and show us why it's not important. So make sure that you do your research. Ultimately, it is up to you, but at least now when you make a decision about how you're going to craft your keepsake pieces in the future, you are doing it with an informed decision. Okay, so that's what this group is all about, is informing you. We just give you the tools, you know, to take your business further if you so wish. Whether you choose to pick those tools up or not and use them is totally up to you. But you know, there is no ulterior motive for me to be telling you about this. This could be a well-kept secret that I could keep to myself and use to the advantage of my own business. But, you know, like, what's the point? I mean, you're not making me rich by me showing you this. You know, yeah. So anyway, I think it's important. I truly do believe that you should all get a degasser. But if you don't have a degasser, you can use, obviously without the, what do we call this shit? I've forgotten. Obviously without this white shit in the bottom, you can actually pop your pieces in one of these and suck it out with the air sucker thingy. Oh my God, the names have left my brain. But yeah, I mean, it won't do a good a job as what a degasser will, and you'll probably have to extract the egg quite a few times throughout the process for it to actually even make any difference. It will help it somewhat, but it's not going to do what a degasser is going to do. I mean, with this way of doing things, it's, you know, it's still a risk for your piece in the future, I guess. But, you know, if it makes you feel better and you can't afford a degasser, I highly suggest even just trying that method and seeing how it works for you. But yes, the degasser does come in handy for crafting dry inclusions. And it also comes in handy when you're making molds as well. So anything that is a two-part mix, you really should be degassing it. Even though I know that some silicons say that it's not needed, it does make for a stronger, more better quality piece. If you're just making a piece of, you know, a silicone mold just for you, that you're just going to quickly whip something up in the studio, like, all my molds are over there. But anyway, you know what I'm saying. You know, feel free to cut corners or whatnot. But if you're making molds to sell on to customers, definitely degas them. And another important thing about molds, so you actually can pour your resin into molds and degas them. This will extract any bubbles out of your pieces that you are making as well. So you won't have those tiny bubbles, and then just let them sit, like just let them set in the degasser. Turn the degasser off, leave the pressure on, and just let them cure in there, and they make for an absolute beautiful piece. One important thing that I'd point out though is that if you're going to do that, I would find out whether the person that's created the mold for you has actually put it through the degassing process, because if they haven't and it hasn't been degassed, and you go and put all of your inclusions into the molds and put it into the degasser and degas it, that mold is literally going to explode, because the degasser is going to be trying to extract all of the bubbles out of the already set silicone. It has happened to me before. So as long as your mold that you are using was made under the pressure of a degasser, it'll be suitable for the degasser to actually be able to make your piece. It does take a little bit of practice, so it can be temperamental. Some molds just aren't suited for it. Others are perfect for it, like my pear stones and stuff. I put them all in the degasser, and it really helps get all those tiny little bubbles that are trapped out of all those nooks and crannies, like especially like the point of the pear, you know, and it helps fill in that mold so much better and produce a better quality stone, a tougher stone. That's another thing. Somebody asked me the other day about the hardness of a resin stone, and somebody thought that they'd heard that it had the hardness of a diamond. It doesn't. So the softness of a resin stone you would be able to compare to the softness of a pearl. If you wanted to know exactly what the number of that softness is on the scale of gemology, then there is a post further down where I talk about the difference between lab created gemstones and diamonds and natural gemstones and diamonds. So it's actually all broken down in there on the scale of hardness of what each, you know, is. So if you go down there and have a look, you'll actually see what a pearl is rating at, and that is like, its resin is a little bit lower than a pearl, but it's the closest to a pearl. And so definitely not as hard as a diamond. When you have like a diamond, you can scratch glass with it. You can't do that with resin. So I hope that helps. If you've got any questions, put them down below. Happy to support you guys in where you can get these. I did sell them at one time, but to be honest, the boxes, they were just taking up room in my studio. So instead of actually selling them now and making a profit from them, I just point people in the right direction as to where to get one, and they can go out and just get it themselves. So yeah, it saves me so much work. Saves me stocking them, saves me shipping them, saves me invoicing you for them, all that stuff that I really don't have time for. So yeah, I can put you in contact with suppliers that will be able to sell you a degasser. Okay, I have got my real job to get back to, so I better go. But I hope that helps. Like I said, any questions down below. Hope you all have an amazing day. Talk to you all soon. Bye.